engineering students were walking across a university campus when one said, "Where did you get such a great bike?" The second engineer replied, "Well, I was walking along yesterday, just minding my own business, when a beautiful woman rode up on this bike, threw it to the ground, took off all her clothes and said, 'Take what you want.'" The second engineer nodded approvingly and said, "Good choice. The clothes probably wouldn't have fit you anyway." Well, I think we may have time for one more. Three engineering students were gathered together discussing the possible designers of the human body. One said, "It was a mechanical engineer. Just look at all the joints." Another said, "No, it was an electrical engineer. The nervous system has many thousands of electrical connections." The last one said, "No, actually, it had to be a civil engineer. Who else would run a toxic waste pipeline through a recreational area?" Our meditation today will be led by Les Strong. I think I need an engineer to tell me how to turn this off. Our speaker today is Dr. Todd Stong, who many of us know because we invite him back every year for his assessment of the lake and its status. He's a licensed professional engineer serving as a volunteer advisor for 11 years for lakeside villages, governments, and for the health of Lake Chapala. Dr. Stong considers what is true about varying lake levels. We hear a lot of things. He will shed light on a 40-year fruitless debate. And as an act of faith, he's going to treat first and then drink lake water during this presentation. I think it's this one, it says bleach. That is in lieu of trying to jump across the lake with a motorcycle. Let's welcome Dr. Stong. Thank you.
Turn your switch on.
Can you hear me?
Oh. Okay. Good enough then. All right. I'm really grateful to see you all here today. This late in the year, I was thinking everybody had gone home. We are home. We are home. Right. Well, I intend to spend the rest of my life here. Okay. This is a great place. A lot of Canadians came here, it seems like. I mean, I used to think it was like 40% Canadians and 50% guys from the U.S. and 10% something else. But it looks like you guys have taken it over. You're the land with the most water. You're the land with the best water. And here you come today to hear a little bit about water locally. But I'm really grateful you're here. As I said, I'm going to demonstrate that the water in the lake is not all that bad, and I'll email you if I die this week. And if you are not on my email list, I have lots of things I write, okay? And I can only say so much today about this particular topic. I mean, I have 33,000 words on it right now on a piece of paper, and I got a briefing for the governor, and I got notes, and I digested it today down to 1,000 words, okay? So, if you really would like to have facts, I'd be happy to email things to you. If I have not emailed you, I don't know who you are, okay? And I may have known you in the past, but lost email, so put your email address on this table, and you will get email from me. Okay. Going back and forth in the lake, this is, I filled up this jug here a couple days ago, going out to Mescala. And it was a day with a lot of waves. This is one I filled up before that with a calm day. All right. Most of you who look at the edge of the lake would not think the water looks like this in the lake. All right. Because you see the lake from the beach, and you can see out 10 foot, 50 feet or something like that, and you have lots and lots of wave action stirring up the mud. So what I did was I took this water here, and I took my t-shirt, a clean one, and I folded it over until I had 8 layers of cloth, and I poured that water through the t-shirt, all right, and I got this water, okay? Now, there is some color here, okay? I want you to understand the color. If, you know, I like chamomile tea, and I like mint tea and rose hip tea and things like that, you know, when I put the tea bag in, my clear water becomes colored, okay? Colored, okay? But it's not harmful to me, all right? And that's what we really have here, because when I pour this water through the t-shirt here, I was quite surprised. I didn't get any particles I could detect with my eye, and I didn't get any staining on my t-shirt when I held this up to the sunlight. So what is in here, if it's not perfectly clear, is color, okay? It's Lake Chapala tea, all right? Okay? So, you know, there's natural vegetation, and the vegetation decays and it leaves the color, okay? If I pour this through a charcoal filter, I can get rid of most of the color, okay, and do that. So, okay, so I told you before that, you know, if you're in places like Africa or things like Mescala, you know, you get some water, you take and you put bleach on your finger here up to this joint and put it in here like this, and that much bleach on that finger will take care of 1 liter of water for me anywhere in the world. If the water is clear, okay? If the water is clear. And that's something worth knowing, because you might have an incident where, you know, you're not sure about the water, but, you know, you can let it settle first, you can pour it through your t-shirt, you know, or your undies or something, you know. And so it needs to sit some time, okay? And for extra precaution, you're going to tell me at the end of the talk here to drink this in, okay? So I need to give it a little bit of time to act. Okay. Now, a few moments on things that are going on about the lake itself. We have aquaculture going on down in Mescala. You remember, we went to the federal government and said, we have an idea on how to make a new future possible for the 3,000 people on the lake who fish, who no longer can fish because the fish are gone, okay? And I'm telling you, you know, I don't see any hope for the fish coming back, because they've gone to such a small size, and every fish they can catch is eaten, and you don't get little fish unless you have adult fish, and we don't have many of those around, okay? I mean, there are some, but it's way down. So we proposed aquaculture, and we designed some cages, we designed some mooring to hold them together, we designed some anchors to put them in the lake, and I put them behind on the west side of the main island of Mescala, because that was the best protection from the wind, because I had no idea as to the combination of wind, waves, and the currents under the water, okay? We've now finished a year plus out there, and we had a couple lessons learned, all right? Well, tilapia grow very fast and sell for 30 or 35 pesos a kilo. We found that we had to switch to bob ray, which are catfish. And they are such a prized fish in this area, they sell for 80 pesos a kilo. So, you know, if you're a money person, which most of us engineers are, you know, because we do numbers, okay? And in response to Margaret's, advice about engineers, you know, I do have a lot of admiration for the feminine gender, you know? And I have 6 boys who are engineers, and everybody has had a job always, has a home, has a car, has a wife, has children, and their life is pretty darn good, I think, in this world. So I have 19 grandsons now, and I had one of them come here as a graduate engineer about 2 years ago, and he spoke Spanish and had a wonderful time across the lake. But anyway, the aquaculture, we're now with a 20-foot cage, able to make 250,000 pesos a year with a 20-foot cage. And so you can see how that can turn into jobs, okay? My latest estimate is that the government will adopt our, it's called technology, our procedures, and apply it to 1% of the lake. We can create 16,000 jobs. Wow. 16,000 jobs. Wow. Like a lot of things in Mexico, it's a matter of will, political will, and money, okay? Because the farmers don't have 25 pesos for tomorrow, all right, alone what it costs to buy a cage and feed and things like that. So that's aquaculture. It's moving along. Right now the federal government wants us to develop sets of cages in the indigenous villages east of Mescala. All right, that's the first priority. Those people down there have lived for 5,000 years off of fish and coyote. The fish are now gone. All right? And you can only do so much with coyote. Point number 2, we had an experiment here about 2 or 3 years ago, and we're working on that. Doug Langley's here somewhere. Where's Doug? All right. Doug is our Rotarian from Nova Scotia, whose people provided the money, a lot of it, to build a pilot project, bottled water created by the women in the village, all right, where we create the water for less than 5 pesos a bottle, which you pay 24 for, and the idea was to show that a village can make its own water and can come out ahead. And in this case, we tried to sell it at, I think we tried to sell it first at 5 or 6, but people said, well, I'm much richer than you, I wouldn't buy that stuff, It was too cheap, okay, as you can imagine, okay? So we had to raise the price to increase the sales. So anyway, it'll give the village more profit, and they can buy things for the school and books and computers and things like that. But we hope to put that on YouTube in a while to show people this is possible here in Mexico for the 25 million people who live in rural villages. They can make their own water. I had the same idea in mind for Guadalajara, which has a 3 billion peso debt, for the water system. Okay, you call it Chapala. Okay, 3 billion peso debt, and they're incurring, I forget, I think it was like about 20 million a year. I forget the number right now. They're incurring a good debt every year, okay? Because they basically make the water for 12 pesos a cubic meter, and they sell it for 5. And you know enough about arithmetic that doesn't work, right? All right. Right. So one of my little side plans, besides putting a causeway across the lake that not many people like, is that if Guadalajara went into the bottled water business instead of Pepsi and Coke, they could give the water to the people of Guadalajara for 1/2 the price it is now, and they, Guadalajara water people, could make 700 million pesos a year profit. And they can very quickly pay off their debt there, and they can start fixing their pipes, okay? 7,700 kilometers of pipes in the street with lots of water oozing in and out. Okay. Lake testing. I just recently took samples of water down at Mescala, and I have it in the lab out in Jocotepec right now being tested for fecal coliform bacteria. The record for the last 4 years has been, again, that the lake level of fecal coliform bacteria, which is the criteria for recreation, is around 50 versus a limit around 200 to 220. All right. 1/4 of the beaches in California are closed every day when they reach 800. The lake here is really, really quite clean, relatively speaking, for recreation. Okay. On the problem of minerals and things like that in the lake, the real challenge is that if I fill this bottle up here with water, and I then, pour in a cup of salt, I have a certain concentration of salt. If I evaporate away half of the bottle, the concentration of salt doubles, okay? All right. And so that's what happens with minerals in the lake, okay? When the lake is at a reasonable level, all of the minerals in the lake are below international standards, no problem, okay? And the water goes to Guadalajara, and the people purify it there with simple flocculation, sedimentation, sand filtering techniques. But when the water goes down, the concentration goes up, right? And so I'll tell you now or later that it's my opinion that the lake is down around 25 or 30% full. It's at 40% right now. The contaminants in the water then reach a concentration which cannot be handled by the purification system in Guadalajara. Will the government tell the people that? I don't think so. Because in 2002 it was down to 14%. Right? But that's the problem we have is information and sharing information and telling the public. But I hope to encourage the people in Chiapala. There's 3,000 employees there who run the water system, and they have some very good engineers, and we have new political persons in place. The new governor of Jalisco is the former mayor of Guadalajara, and I hope to meet with him in about 10 days or 2 weeks to talk about these things. So anyway, Guadalajara, the bottom line is Guadalajara dies the day the lake goes dry. Guadalajara dies the day the lake goes dry. Okay. So will the lake go dry? No, it will not. Okay. The problem is they procrastinate and they wait far too long. Okay. Guadalajara stood up 2 times in the past. It used to be in the old days, the water running out of the lake and down the Rio Santiago went through hydroelectric power plants to provide the light for Guadalajara. When the lights went out in the 50s, the guerrillas stood up. All right? And the guerrillas said, we want some attention to this water situation from the Lerma Valley, coming down to the lake. And in those days, the problem was really, I would say, attributable to rainfall. Okay? But anyway, the guerrillas stood up, and they put in a pumping station in the coastland, okay, to pump water out of the lake into the Rio Santiago so it could run down and turn over the electric generators, okay, and the lights came back on. Around 1956, they were still pumping those pumps, okay, but now they decided to turn them into the Rio Santiago, which would then feed canals taking water into Chapala, into Guadalajara. Okay. Those canals still exist. I don't know to what degree they're connected to the water system. I haven't been able to see it. I can track them on Google Earth, and I see the water. I can't see it moving on the computer, but I can see it there, okay? In 1991, we built the first pipeline from the lake up to Guadalajara, okay, 42 kilometers, a pipeline that you can run a Volkswagen through. A pipeline that can fill a large tank truck every 2 seconds. Right? The pump station at Coland continued to pump. Right? And so what most of you people don't know, and what the media never talks about, is there's a pump station in the corner of the lake down here at Coland, and I was invited to take the Jalisco Congress Deputado down there, who was responsible for the municipality of the lake, to show him the plant, okay? Because he wasn't sure if he wanted to believe me or not. I took him and said, here's the plant, and he hung on the fence, and we looked through the fence, and you could hear the motors running, and we could see the water that was, 4 meters down here and 4 meters up here. I said, this is what's happening, okay? Because they're still pumping, because now they have tens of thousands of acres of irrigated land along the Rio Santiago for which somebody collects some money. And so those pumps have been pumping ever since 1947, and they pump today. I don't know the exact number. In fact, I just found out the other day that although the pumping station began originally with CFE, the electrical people in Mexico, the pumping station is now operated by Chiapala, which is the Guadalajara water system. Okay? And so I have to find my spies to see what I can find out. Yeah. Yeah, I was a spy myself a couple times in past life. So that's sort of what it is. But anyway, the main issue today is trying to get the big picture, okay, of what's going on. I've come here for many years talking about the lake. You know, this body of water here, you know, it's about 50 miles long and 10 miles wide or something like that. And its health and what's going on with it, okay. But today I have made a dedicated effort to try and find out what's going on. And to do that, I have, in the last 2 months, I have digested about 1,200 pages of Spanish documents in Spanish via Google Translate, okay? Google Translate's not the best, okay, but comparing lots of documents, you know, lots of reports out of Conagua, which is a federal agency for this, from Sigarpa, which is a farming agency for this, from reports from Jalisco State, reports from Chiapa, and probably most importantly, reports from the UN and the World Health Organization and different foreign universities where they somehow ended up with a Mexican student who did a thesis on some problem in Mexico. Okay? And so the combination of those 1,200 pages is the basis for what I'm trying to share with you. The bottom line is that it's hard to manage anything if you don't have information. It's equally hard to manage things if the information you have is not correct. Right? And it's hard even still if you have parties who are arguing with each other and they make their own facts. You know? And so that's what you're faced with when you're trying to understand this problem here. Okay. The bottom line is I believe the lake will survive because of logic and economics. In the meantime, greed, stupidity, and the misrepresentation of low-use, high-profit projects will make life miserable for a lot of people, mostly the poor. And that's what I see as the reality, okay? And so it's a matter of time because big projects are enjoyed by big people. And that's, you know, what runs a lot of things. Here are 4 things I'd like you to think about and before I go into any more details. There's enough water in the Rio Lerma Basin to take care of the expected growth of Guadalajara for the next 50 years as it goes from about 5 million now to about 12 million in 2063. Number 2, the best place to store water, the cheapest place to store water, the existing place to store water to cover an 8-month period of dry weather in this region of the country is Lake Chapala. Okay. To try and store that water anywhere else is going to cost you megabucks, okay? Somebody came here a couple of years ago and said, oh, we should save rainwater. And you were here for that talk, some of you. And so I did some calculations, okay? Because I get a little bit irritated with people that use adjectives and adverbs as their arguing tools. If a family of 4 in Guadalajara saved the water they needed for 8 months, the cost for the family for the water tanks, basically the main cost, 950,000 pesos. Do you think each family in Guadalajara can afford 950,000 pesos? No. Right? Stupid, right? Right. Okay, so the government, they should do it, right? The government should do it. Let's have one big tank, right? One big tank. All right, so I calculate the water for 4.5 million people, right? For 8 months. And I got a tank that's 3 meters high, you know, about 10 foot high. And on this side, it's 10 kilometers long. And on that side, it's 10 kilometers long. Right? 400 billion pesos. Stupid, right? Right? Number 3. All you hear in the media is, you know, people we advise that you dance, your favorite dance, and you pray for rain. Right? I'm telling you, if you look at the rainfall records, in the Lerma Basin, and you look at here, the variation is like 10%, okay? 10%, all right? We're talking about 800 or 900 millimeters of rain per year, about 30 inches in general, all right? That's a 10% effect. But the Lerma River, which is bringing the water to Lake Chapala on its way to Guadalajara, from 1930 to up to 1990, in that 60-year period of time, was reduced 90%. So what do you think has the bigger effect? The 90 or the 10? Right? And you don't have to take off your shoes to count, right? No. Okay, so I'm telling you, it's a myth. It's something that people can sell to people that don't read. Okay. I had number 4 here somewhere. Okay, here we go. It will only be political will that water will be sent in a timely manner to the lake, and thus the lake needs the only gorilla that's available to us to stand up for time number 3. Okay. And so that's what we need. And so my hope is to convince the governor, the new 38-year-old lawyer, who is now the president of Jalisco, and who understands well the water problem within Guadalajara, which is about 75% of the people of Jalisco, to take action now. Okay? And so I have prepared a briefing about 15 charts with the help of Reg Ray over here, who makes things look beautiful. I'm not a graphics guy, and I hope to talk to him. I had a 11-hour day with the Jalisco Congressional Deputado about 2 weeks ago, taking him down the lake here through these villages and to understand what's going on, and to end up at that Coatland plant to tell him what's going on there with that water flow. Okay, so here's the situation. To my rear is the Lerma River Basin. 12 million people. 12 million people, okay? Up there to the north is about 5 million people. And we here at the lake are about 1/3 of a million people. So you know how much we care, or they think about us, right? We're about 2%, right? And what do you say when 2% of the people get up and yell, no, you're not paying attention to them, right? Okay. So there isn't anything that you can do here as the 2% to sort of change things here, okay? All right. For 10,000 years, the water slowed down the Lerma River, and it just went on its way, and people just sort of got out of the way, and they tried to prevent flooding and things like that. It came to the lake, it went through the lake, it totally flushed out the lake, and it changed all the water in the lake every year and a half, went on out the northeast corner into the Rio Santiago, went up past Guadalajara, and then went 500 kilometers more to the Pacific Ocean. All right? And that's what it did, when Fred and Wilma and Dino, were watching, right? Yeah. Hey, have you been down to see the rocks where Fred scratched on down by the Scala? The petroglyph down there? Yeah, I think they're pretty interesting. But anyway, we had 10,000 like that. But in the terms, I'm going to try and say things today in inches of lake, okay? Because you can visualize inches of lake. All right? The engineers in this business, are not talking about beautiful young ladies with their bicycles, but they're talking about millions of cubic meters of water, okay? Those are the terms. One term, millions of cubic meters of water. And originally, before you start stopping things in Lerma Basin, we had 5,000 or 6,000 million cubic meters of water coming down the river every year. All right? The other term they use is cubic meters per second, and that's just as informative to you. One of the myths, one of the arguments used by those people against those people is that if you send water to Lake Chapala, the evaporation is such that it will be worthless, okay? You'll send a bucket of water here, and it will evaporate away, so who gets any use of it, okay? All right. The problem is that those people there haven't realized that the water that comes in the lake is not only the Lerma River, but the water that comes from the rain around the lake itself. Okay, now we have a watershed in the lake, okay? And so when I calculate the rainfall here, that falls directly in the lake, and I calculate the rainfall that falls into the hills around here, and I calculate like 15% is going to come off of the hills and make it to the lake, all right? I come up with about 80 inches of water for the lake a year, okay? 80 inches, all right? 80 inches, which is, the evaporation is 83 inches, all right? Did you see what I'm saying? All right? About 96% of the evaporation is compensated by the water that comes not from the Lerma River, but from our own rainfall in this basin. All right? So that's a myth that has to be, overcome. Just like the myth that, it depends on the rain. God gave up managing the water here sometime before 1978. All right. In 1978, that's when the last water flowed out of the lake to the Santiago. Okay? The only water that has left there and continues to leave here is by that pumping station down there. Okay? And the pumping station is well there. So for 35 years, not a drop of water has flowed out of the lake under its own will. The way I see the Lerma Basin is that you have two friends and you have a case of beer, okay? And I don't drink beer, but I think there's 24 cans in the case, is that right? And, you and your two friends, you have a couple beers and there's some left over, okay? And what's left over, you can get the bar beer or something like that, She's a German and they like beer, right? But, as you take on more friends, all right? The Lerma River has taken on more appetite for water, for beer, okay? And now instead of having 3 friends sharing your case of beer, you have 33 or 43, all right? And you can imagine what is left over for Barbara. Not much, okay? So, when you go to the Lerma River, you can't tell if it's flowing, okay? All right? Because it's level with the lake. You follow me? The river comes in low, like the river doesn't come in and pour over the edge into the lake. No, it's running for many miles. Pretty level. What I do is I take a jug like this and I fill it up full of rocks and water, and I fill it with the water will just sink, and I put it down on a string about 10 foot, and then I put another bottle on the top that will just hold it there. And then if there's currents down below, it will start moving my bottle on the surface, right? And I take a GPS reading, and then 10 minutes later I take a GPS reading, and then I know how fast it's going, okay? Right. But it's my belief that probably 8 or 10 years out of the last 20 years, no water at all came into the lake from the Lerma. Right? In other words, we need about 20-some inches, I think 27 inches max each year for people to take water out of the lake. And so if you don't get any water, then it goes down 27 inches. And next year, 27 inches, okay? And so that's the kind of thing that's been going on. Nobody measures the Lerma River. There's no gauges, okay? Most of the irrigation in the country is not measured. 57% of water in the country is billed. The other 43%, they don't know where it went. Right? In Germany, the record is 87% is billed. Okay? So there's a lot of water in this country that nobody knows quite where it went. Right? Okay. What happened here is that the people in the Lerma River Basin, maybe about 2 or 3 million people back in the 30s, decided to start irrigating. And the government controls the water. Since 1917, water has been a federal government piece of property, okay? Everything to do with water is under federal control. Okay? Basically, to the top of each lake plus 10 meters past the top. For each arroyo, 5 meters on either side of the center line of the arroyo. Okay? That is federal property. federal zone. They began to issue concessions, all right? It used to be the king would give concessions for water in Mexico. And that started with the Spanish and then came over to the Mexicans. And so they started issuing out concessions. Concession is a right to use water, all right? You pay a fairly modest fee for a concession. They don't pay anything for water. As best I can tell, the water that goes to irrigation is given away free. And that's a problem with the motivation of saving water. On the concession side, the sale of concession is done by the worker bees in the organization, okay? It seems to make up 50 to 65% of the budget of CONAGUA, which is a federal organization. So that gives me the impression that there may be a bias, that the more concessions you can give out, the more concessions you can maintain, the more sure you are about your budget. And so it's estimated right now, not by me, but by foreign observers and things like that, the WHO and UN. The concessions are about 50 to 72% beyond the available water. All right? And so I'm a farmer and I paid my 200 pesos this year and I'm expecting to get water, okay? Unlimited water. And if we're running out of water, who do we cut back on? We cut back on the people going down to Lake Chapala, okay? There's what they call a hydrocracy, or maybe that's a little way of spelling it. We have democracy and we have other hierarchy, but there's a hydrocracy, a belief among a lot of people in this irrigation business that it is sinful, it is wrong if the water leaves your property unused, okay? All right? And it would be the worst of all tragedies if the water reached the ocean. All right? Now, that may be okay, but how about the people in between? All right? And so that mentality overtook the basic from the 1930s up to about the 1990s. And we have all these concessions, all this water out there, all this water at no price. And then we begin to build dams, right? Marvelous, wonderful projects. There's nothing happier for an engineer than to have $1 billion, to explore and design and test and build. I like the rumbling of the machines. I like blowing up rocks. I went to first grade when I was 7 years old because I blew up my knee. Okay. And the last time I had an explosion, it broke the windows for 90 miles out in New Mexico. Right? And so I've been blowing up things a lot of my life. But 5 minutes, it's incredible. Okay, well, Margaret, you're really a spoiler. I mentioned, yeah, okay. Well, anyway, there are a lot of ways that the farmers can reduce their use, okay? There are mechanical ways. For example, when you have grain, we have low-level spray irrigation instead of Babylonian flooding, okay? Pre-Diluvian technology can be put aside, right? If you have row crops, we can put in bubblers or drip irrigation. If you're a farmer and you have 10 hectares of corn, and you're making 20,000 pesos per hectare, what do you think if I tell you you can make 90,000 pesos a hectare with tomatoes? Can I convince you to maybe use fewer acres to make the same amount of money? Can I convince you to maybe grow pecans and make 130,000 pesos a hectare? Can I convince you to, maybe with the aid of the government, develop organic greenhouses as I do in New Mexico, and on the same hectare, don't make 20,000 pesos, don't make 90,000 pesos. My sales are 20 million pesos a hectare, 20 million. Same hectare. 1/7 the water for that hectare too. There are ways to do it. But I think it's not possible to get 2 or 2.5 million people to change their way from, Aztec-derived, religious adherence to corn, right? I mean, when you can grow corn in Russia and Argentina and in Canada and the United States, in 1,000-acre fields with a GPS-driven tractor, how does it compare with the average plot of land in the Lerma Basin, which is 10 hectares? Right? Economics are not there. It's much better for these people here with the wonderful weather they have, the climate that allows you to have 2 growing seasons, to grow higher value vegetables, okay, for the world, for the EU, for Canada, for the United States. Okay, just to give a few things. The total water that comes down the Lerma River is about 17 foot. If I put it in inches, okay, or if it was a lake, it would be 17 foot of water, okay? Of the 17 foot, 13 foot of that 17 foot goes to irrigation, all right? 8 inches of it goes to Mexico City, where they installed a bunch of wells at the top of Lerma. 4 inches goes to industry in the Lerma Basin, and now we come to here. About 8 inches a year goes to Guadalajara. About 4 inches makes up that difference in evaporation I talked before. About 4 inches is for irrigation around the lake by all kinds of unknown, mysterious nighttime farmers. And about 10 or 12 inches goes out with that mysterious pumping plant at the far corner of the lake that the media never talks about. The people in Guadalajara have leaky pipes. They have a big debt for the water system. They're not fixing things. They got 3,000 employees. The average employee makes $25,000 a year, which to me seems high for Mexico. How are they going to fix those pipes? Okay, I told you earlier, if I made bottled water, I can fix it pretty fast, right? Because I make a lot of money. But if you fix the leaks, there's 30% leakage in Guadalajara. They're getting 4% of the water, and they lose 30%, okay? So it would save about 1.5 inches off the lake, right? The Lerma farmers, the irrigation farmers, are getting 80% of the water, okay? And they're losing half of it. And one of my government spies tells me he thinks it's 70. Well, I'll say 50. So that's 40 inches, okay? So this guy is losing 40 inches of the Lerma River, and this guy is losing 1.5 inches. You understand where the priority should be? Yeah. But all we hear in the media is, Guadalajara fixing it up. Okay. I've lost it anyway. Here's a statement. In 2010, there was a World Water Day. And Mexico sent their representative there. And his talk here, they wanted a paper about this problem of the Lerma Basin, Guadalajara. And what they said was this, that they believed it was better to seek a replacement to Lake Chapala as a main source for Guadalajara. What does that tell you? Okay? When leadership says we're going to find something to replace Guadalajara, okay? It means, number one, they don't want to argue with the people in the Lerma River Basin, okay? Right. You got to understand, we have 25,000 staff at Conagua, okay? Mostly engineers, okay? Mostly guys like me, who collect bicycles. Huh? Sometimes. Now, the thing is, happiness to me is projects, okay? Happiness to me is dreams converted into concrete, right? Right? That's happiness. Is it fun to argue with 5 states who are haggling with debatable data over this, and they do it for 40 years, and you generate hundreds of pages of documents, and it doesn't stop the falling in the lake one drop? Okay, huge amounts of time. No, I don't want to do that. I mean, as an engineer, it's not my cup of tea to want to go out and be involved in endless debate and devote my life to that kind of thing, okay? So that's the mentality there. Okay.
I'm going.
Okay, good. So anyway, I have lots more here, and I babbled away, but I have to drink this water. So.
Yes, it's time for the potion.
Okay, all right. All right, and so here we am. See, it looks pretty good, right? Actually, that's not so bad. I'll tell you, because I was at San Pedro Ixicon with the Deputado last week, and I got to the water plant, and the water is boiling, it's bubbling out of the ground there. Okay, and I showed them how all this water's there. And the guy who runs the water plant had not put chlorine in the water, okay? You know, the bucket where they're putting chlorine, you know, was empty. And so he saw me coming, okay? And he ran quickly and got a hose, and he put the hose in a 55-gallon barrel with chlorine that is 4 times more strong than this, okay? 4 times strong, and he siphoned it with his mouth and put it into the bucket and ran back and put it in the water plant, okay? Before the Deputado came. So I didn't know that people could siphon Clorox. As a kid, I used to siphon gasoline, you know. Yeah, questions?
Yes, we're going to open up now to questions from you. Raise your hand. Someone will come with the mic. Stand and present your question.
Good morning to you. I remember some years ago we went down to the pump house to take some photographs of gutting the fish. And I was going to take photographs of the pump house, and I was told, you're not allowed to take photographs of the pump house. I said, why not? They said, well, it doesn't really exist.
That's right.
And this had about, I think, 4 gigantic pumps inside it.
15 pumps.
15.
15 pumps.
Yeah.
It's 300 foot long, the building.
That's right, yeah. And what they're doing, pumping water out into a river which had been dammed up before it went into the lake.
Yeah, it goes
So
into
they're pumping water
goes into
from the
river,
lake into the river, which was flowing the wrong way, so they could pump out of it.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to ask about was that our idea of farmers are not the normal, our idea is like a family farmer. Now, do these guys own the farm, or are the farms owned by politicians?
Okay. That's a good question. I think the greater number of them are individual farmers. The land began as ejido land. You remember when the country had a bit of a revolution here, and they divided up the land and gave it to each village, okay? And then I think around 1990-something, they said you could privatize ejido land, and so they started to be able to sell it, okay? But the major people in the lake that can do anything are the commercial farmers, okay? Remember Vincente Fox, okay? And that group. Those mega farmers are the ones that, you know, when push gets to shove and they squeeze the water down, they have the money to switch to better methods, and the poor people don't, okay? And so my advice for them is to go to tomatoes and green peppers and things like that. But the mega farmers really control the policy. Right. Next question.
On the lake we have several.
Right up, Lowell. Would you like to repeat that?
On the lake we have, I believe we have several like processing plants that clean the water.
About 16.
There's 16 of them. Are they all operable, and do they contribute properly to the return of clean water?
All right. The good news is that in Mexico overall, about 30% of wastewater is treated, okay? Mexico City with 20 million people just flushes the toilet and down the Arroyo it goes, okay? No processing. Guadalajara for years has had no processing. Within the year they should have most of their water treated by wastewater plants. We here in the Lerma River Basin Valley to Lake Chapala have about 80% of the wastewater treated, which is quite commendable in this region, okay? Now, when I go around those plants, about 3 are not working sometime during the year, okay? All right? And mostly that's because the government didn't support them, okay? They didn't bring the chlorine, they didn't fix the pump, you know, they didn't train the person. We have one down in San Pedro Itzicon, and for 5 years the water's been going around inside like this, and 5 people have been coming to work like that for 5 years, and not a drop has ever gone out. and I showed the congressional deputy that, you know, and he said, well, you know. Yes.
Hi, I have 2 related questions. I have two related questions. You're very inspiring, and this, although we're only 2% here at the lake, I'm sure there's a lot of people here like myself who would like to do something. What would you recommend us doing both on a personal level, and what could we do on a volunteer level?
Well, if you want to be a helper, you know, I like helpers, okay? I need people to ride along, to go see villages, go these things. I need people who can write legible notes, because mine aren't too legible. I need people to make sure I come back out of the lake when I go in to get a water sample, or at least they can say, you know, he died here. You know what I mean? Because sometimes the mud really sucks you in, you know, it pulls your shoes off, you know. And I go in the lake at about 20 places, but I need help, you know, a lot like with Greg. Anybody likes to do graphics, you know? Translators, I need help. But if you like to just, you know, go to some of these villages, go to these projects, you know, or go talk to the government for me, you know, let me know, okay? My card is back on the board here with email again, so you can contact me, but I welcome help.
Those tomatoes you talked about sound delicious, but how do you make tortillas from tomatoes?
Okay, you take $90,000 worth of tomatoes and you sell them to buy $20,000 worth of corn.
Somebody's got to make the corn.
Well, they make it in the U.S., they make it in Canada, they make it in Argentina. It has a worldwide market, okay? But you'll be able to buy a lot more corn for a few pounds of tomatoes, and that's what you got to do. You can't just, you know, say, you know, my 95 generations back in my family, they raised corn, you know. It ain't going to work, okay? Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. We live in Mexico. I am curious, how many Mexicans are in the audience today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now the reality of it is, if a Mexican came up to the United States to solve one of our problems, how would we react? So what I would like to ask is, how do you propose to empower the Mexican people? Because it doesn't matter how much knowledge we have. This is Mexico, and we must deal with their mentality, their belief in higher power, and we can laugh all we want about it, but it is their belief. And I am concerned, when you go to the governor, will there be Mexicans with you?
Yes.
How many Mexicans?
I'll have the Jalisco Congressional Deputado for this region with me.
How many?
Probably, I imagine 3.
And will they be speaking?
They'll be speaking as translators for me.
Now I would like,
And all my slides are translated.
Mexicans. Is there anybody who agrees with me that this is a Mexican problem? Nobody. I only try to see perception. Perception is different from reality. And the lake belongs to the Mexicans.
Right. To answer your question, one previous question, 2 things. Number 1, you know, what I intend to do is to get the facts out and get them out in Spanish, get them out in Mexican newspapers, okay? Once I gave the good governor a chance to do what he wants to do, they're going into Mexican newspapers and on YouTube, right? In Spanish, and they can do what they want with the facts, okay? Right. Number 2, you got to understand that in Mexico, if you go to the university, you get a degree, where's the best salary? It's the best salary with the easiest job is in Mexico City, where the salaries are double the rest of the country almost. All right? And unfortunately, that's where a lot of our talent is in Mexico. It's in Mexico City. When you have a desk in Mexico City, how much do you understand about the lumber river basin? No, not much.
I would like to give anyone who needs to leave the opportunity to do that, and we will extend our questions another 5 minutes or so. And after that, if you have questions that are unanswered, Dr. Stong will be here for a few
I'm happy to
moments.
stay 11 minutes.
Can I just say one? I have one.
My wife. Oh.
because of the help that he has given us.
The deputy was once the president of Jalisco, many years ago. Because of the help that he has done for the presidents, they have always come to him. And they came to Todd and asked him to go and do some water, sanitation systems up in Manzanita, and they asked him to go to governor. So this is coming through the Mexicans that are asking for Todd. It is not something, because of what he's done for so long, the Mexicans respect him, and they go to him, and all the presidents around the lake. He's been, the new presidents that are just in, he's been talking to them and telling them what they need to do in the pueblos. But this is not something Todd is doing. They are coming to him. I just wanted to say that.
You said something very reassuring with the condition, with what's going on with the lake. You said, is the lake going to dry up? No. What do you see keeping the lake from drying up in many, many years, given we're not getting any water in the lake, it's being used? What is going to keep it from drying up?
The federal government, Conagua, has the ultimate control over the lever that controls the 500 plus dams and reservoirs on the Lerma River, okay? In 2002, they filled the whole lake up to 75% in a year and a half, okay? By pulling the lever, okay? All right. I could fill the lake in a week and a half if I could put my hands on the lever, okay? All right. All right. So, I mean, it's possible the water's there. It's a matter of allocation, all right? Of allocation. We had one time when there was no irrigation. Now we got an excessive amount of irrigation. We have a city that's going to grow. They'll pay 5 to 20 pesos a cubic meter for water. The farmers want to pay 0. Who's going to win? Around the world, the urban areas win because they'll pay the money for the water. Okay? When it gets below 30%, you know, if the people are honest, they'll tell the people you can't drink the water because it's too full of mercury, cadmium, lead, and arsenic. Okay? All right.
Okay, we have one more here.
Todd, I heard you talk about here it's big money projects because the big people are involved.
Where are you anyway?
I'm right here,
Oh,
Todd.
okay, good. That's good.
And as a Mexican, I know the Mexican chapter because the 2% here won the fight to stop the second aqueduct. They didn't win that fight, it's just been put off because there wasn't money right now, because you know how the money situation is. But if the Mexicans can stop that, then the people that are set to benefit from the big tank, that might be built in Guadalajara, they're waiting, I think, for that to happen because somebody's going to get a lot of money if that happens, and the Mexican people think that that is one way to take the pressure off the lake. Well, my question is, what do you think about the storage tank being built because of all the corruption and everything that happens here in Mexico?
Okay, if you want a storage tank, it's here. It's free, okay? If you want to build a dam, okay, it's 12 million pesos, all right? To build a dam up there somewhere, but where are you going to get the water to fill the dam, all right? If you want to build that tank in Guadalajara to save the rainwater, that's 400 billion pesos. So you got 400 billion pesos, 12 billion pesos, or 0, all right? Now, there are some people who think that there's a lot of water on the Rio Verde River coming down from over there, okay? And that is, of all the projects that are around, that's probably the most reasonable one. It's called the El Zapatillo Dam. It was originally set up to provide water to Leon through a 140-kilometer aqueduct. And then they were going to provide some water to, I think they call it Los Altos, the top part of Jalisco. All right. And then the engineer said, let's raise the dam from 80 meters up to 105 meters, and we can double the water for a small increase in price. Okay? All right. And if that happens, we'll have water for 1 or 1.5 million people in Guadalajara. But if you get that done, that's good. But there ain't no more water, okay? I mean, unless you want to pump it. I mean, 70, 80 years from now, I've done calculations. I need to go to Puerto Vallarta, desalinate the water, pump it 200 kilometers here, a mile high, and it ain't cheap, okay? But I can do that. So the water in the foreseeable future, it's not around, okay? Right now we have the Calderon Dam, which provides 6 or 10% of the water in Guadalajara. We have the wells in Guadalajara that provide about 30%, and they're going down, down, down. Right? The only place for water for Guadalajara, practically speaking, economically speaking, and logically speaking, is the Upper River Basin.
I think that's going to conclude our questions, and we thank everybody for coming. We certainly I might want to say before you do, next week we're going to have two people, Dean Green and Luana Ray, talk about how to grow and harvest moringa trees. And that is something that is supposed to be the most wonderful thing to eat known to man. So we hope you'll come, take up your coffee cups, and stack your chairs.